There's a number that changes everything, and it is much smaller than you think. It is not 1,000,000. It is not 100,000. It is 10,000. And getting there is the hardest money you will ever make. Charlie Munger spent years telling people that the first serious chunk of money is brutal, that it is disproportionately painful compared to everything that comes after, and that you simply have to get through it anyway. He was right, and almost nobody explains why. So that is what this video is. The complete path from zero to your first 10,000 in the order that actually works. For parts. And the order matters more than any individual piece. If you have been trying to build savings for years and watching the number never move, stay with me. This channel explains the mechanisms, not the motivation. Let's start with why this specific stretch is so hard, because understanding it changes how you approach it. Compounding does nothing for you here. That is the whole answer. Every piece of wealth advice you have ever read is built on compounding. Money makes money, that money makes money, and given enough time, the curve goes vertical. All of that is true, and none of it helps you right now. Run the numbers. $10,000 growing at 7% earns you $700 in a year. That is real, but it is not going to change your life, and it took you years to get there. Compare that to the same 7% on $1 million, which is $70,000 a year, roughly a salary, arriving whether you get out of bed or not. So at the start of the journey, the engine everyone talks about is barely running, which means the first 10,000 is not produced by returns. It is produced entirely by your behavior. Every single dollar of it is the difference between what you earned and what you spent. And that is genuinely brutal, because it is all effort and no leverage. You get no help. Nobody feels momentum at this stage, which is exactly why most people quit here and conclude they are bad with money. You're not bad with money. You're in the part of the curve where the curve is flat. Now, part one of the path, and it is the part everyone gets wrong. You will not save your way to 10,000. Take somebody earning $3,000 a month who spends $2,900. They cut hard. They cancel subscriptions. They stop the coffee. They get genuinely disciplined, and they find another 100 a month. Now they're saving 200. At 200 a month, 10,000 takes just over 4 years. 4 years of sustained restraint for one number, and any single unexpected expense in those 4 years sets them back months. And here is the structural problem. Cutting has a floor. You can only cut to zero, and long before zero you hit the things you will not give up, which is most people's real limit. There's a hard wall, and you reach it fast. Earning has no ceiling. None at all. So the gap between what comes in and what goes out is the only engine you have at this stage, and almost everyone spends all of their effort on the side of that gap that barely moves. Cut where it is painless, absolutely. But understand that cutting is a one-time gain of a few $100s a month at most, and then it is finished forever. Which brings us to part 2, raising what you earn, and specifically the fastest legal way to do it. It is not a second job. A second job doubles the hours you work at the same rate, and hours have a ceiling of 24 a day. It is not a side hustle you start from nothing, which takes months before it pays anything. The fastest lever is charging more for the skill you already have, because raising your rate multiplies every hour you're already working, including the ones you worked this morning. That is the difference between adding and multiplying, and at this stage, multiplying is the only thing that moves fast enough. Here is the uncomfortable part. Most people are still being paid for the skill they had 3 years ago. Nobody reprices you automatically. There is no system anywhere that notices you got better and quietly raises what you get paid. That is a thing you have to go and do deliberately, and the fact that it feels awkward is precisely why so few people do it, which is also why it works. And you do not need to be the best in the world at anything. That advice stops people cold, because being top 1% at a single skill is genuinely brutal. You need to be good, not exceptional, at 2 or 3 things that combine. Decent at your core skill, plus decent at writing clearly, plus decent at understanding numbers. Each of those alone is completely ordinary. Somebody who has all 3 is rare, and rare is what gets paid. Then do the part almost everybody skips. Write down exactly what you delivered in the last 12 months. Real outcomes, real numbers, specific things that would not have happened without you. Then ask, with that list in your hand, for a specific figure. Most people never ask. They wait to be noticed. Nobody is coming. Now part 3, and this is where most of the 10,000 actually gets built or lost. You have to keep the increase. Because here's what normally happens. Income finally goes up, and spending rises to meet it automatically without a decision ever being made. The apartment gets upgraded. The car gets financed. A few subscriptions attach themselves. And the gap, the only thing that was ever building your 10,000, sits exactly where it was. That is why people earning far more than you also have nothing saved. They are running the same setup at a higher volume. So the rule is simple and it is hard. Keep your fixed costs flat for 12 months after any income increase. Now you're spending your fixed costs specifically. Rent, car, insurance, subscriptions. You can spend more on food and travel because those are reversible in a bad month. Fixed costs are not. They do not come down when your income does. And change where the money lands. Route a fixed amount to a separate account automatically on payday before you ever see it. Not the leftovers. There are never leftovers because saving from the remainder means your spending defines your saving, and your spending will always expand to fill whatever is in the account. Now part 4. What you actually do with the money as it accumulates, because the order matters here too. The first 1,000 is not an investment. It is a floor. Right now, if your car dies or a bill lands, that becomes debt at 20% or worse. So the first 1,000 has one job, and it is not growth. Its job is to stand between you and borrowing. And notice the return on that. Avoiding 20% interest is a guaranteed 20%, and nothing on earth guarantees you 20%. You just do not see it because it shows up as something bad that did not happen. After that floor exists, the boring part. A broad, low-cost index fund, bought regularly, ignored completely. Not stock picking, not whatever is moving this week. And third, the one nobody mentions, which has the largest return at this specific stage. Put some of it back into a skill that raises what you can charge. $1,000 invested at 7% earns about $70 in a year. $1,000 spent on a skill that lifts your income can return that every month for the rest of your working life. Nobody says this out loud because a skill is not a product anyone can sell you. Let me put the whole thing on a timeline because the argument lands differently than the arithmetic. Take that same person. $3,000 a month after tax, spending $2,900, saving $100. Months 1 to 3. Nothing dramatic happens, and this is the part people quit during. They cut what is painless and find an extra $100, so they are saving $200. They also open the second account and automate the transfer, which takes 20 minutes once. Total saved so far about $600. It feels like nothing. It is not nothing. It is the floor being built. Months 4 to 9. This is where the work actually is. They pick one skill that pays, they get good enough to charge for it, they write down what they delivered, and they ask. Say it lands at $400 a month more, which is a modest, ordinary result and not a fantasy. Crucially, their rent does not change. Their car does not change. The whole $400 goes straight into the gap, automatically before they see it. Now they are saving $600 a month. Months 10 to 18. Nothing new happens at all. They just do not undo it. No upgrades, no lifestyle creep, fixed cost flat. $600 a month for 9 more months is another $5,400. Add it up. That is $9,600 by the end of month 18, and they crossed $10,000 early in month 19. 19 months, not 4 years. And notice what actually did the work. Not the cutting, which contributed $100 a month and then stopped forever. The income increase did most of it, and holding fixed costs flat is what let them keep it. Now the objections, because there are 2 honest ones. First, is this not just telling me to earn more, which everyone says? No, everyone says earn more and stops there, and that advice fails constantly, because earning more without holding your fixed costs flat produces a bigger life and an identical gap. The instruction is not earn more, is widen the gap and defend it. Second, what if I genuinely cannot raise my income right now? Then the floor and the automation still apply, and you build slower, and that is a real answer rather than a comfortable one. But test the assumption first. Most people who believe their income is fixed have never once written down what they delivered and asked for a number. So here is the whole path in order. 1. Understand that this stretch has no compounding. So it is all behavior, and it will feel like no progress for a long time. 2. Stop trying to cut your way there. Cut what is painless, then stop. 3. Raise what you charge for the skill you already have. Stack 2 or 3 ordinary skills. Document your outcomes. Ask for a specific number. 4. Keep fixed costs flat for a year while income rises and route the difference automatically before you see it. 5. First 1,000 is the floor, then the boring index, then back into yourself. That is it. That is the roadmap. And here is what I want you to take away. The first 10,000 is hard because you're doing all of the work and getting none of the help. That is not a sign you are failing. That is the shape of this part of the curve, and it is the same for everybody who has ever done it. After that, it changes. Not because the money is large, but because you now have a system that produces a gap every month, and a gap that exists reliably is the only thing that has ever built wealth. And it is worth being clear about what that 10,000 actually buys you, because it is not the interest. It buys you the ability to say no. No to the job that is underpaying you, because you can survive the gap while you find another. No to the emergency that used to become a credit card balance. No to the payment plan on something you could now simply buy outright, more cheaply. It also buys you the ability to take a risk that pays. Every genuinely good opportunity people miss, they miss because they could not afford 3 bad months. 10,000 is roughly 3 bad months, and that changes which doors are open to you. That is the real return, and it never appears in any calculation of compound growth. Get to 10,000. The rest is easier than this. If this explains something you've been feeling for years, subscribe because that is what this channel does.